Thank you so much. So we're going to bring up now Nancy Wallace. Now, she is near and dear to my heart. She is such a leader. Like, she's a president of NCBW in the Dallas metro area. She's just she everything, y'all. When I say a leader for nonprofit organizations, for HBCUs, an advocate, she stands on business, on everything Black women, just Black people, our community in general. So, Nancy, if you can hop on, tell us about your story and also let us know like your work with being an advocate for Black women.
Thank you so much for having me today, Neshe. I appreciate you including me in on this discussion. And as soon as I saw the topic, I was, as they say, 10 toes down. I was 10 toes down, sending you a message to
Yes.
let you know, hold up, sis, I got some stories to tell.
Yes.
Because, you know, my journey started before I even got pregnant. Somebody that looked just like me said, oh, have you had any children? Because you probably won't be able to have any. And they said it just like that and went on about their shift. And I think sometimes because people do something so often, so frequently, it becomes so common to them, they don't pay attention to how it hits with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very shocking for me.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to sit back and think about it. You are really your most vulnerable when you are in labor.
Mm-hmm.
So she was wrong, FYI, because I went to a specialist and he said, I've seen everything and we're going to have some babies. And we did. We actually adopted my first son because we believed the lie. And then before he turned 2, we were pregnant with my second son. And then we had 2 daughters after that. But when you think about being in labor, you're your most vulnerable when you're in labor. Your nerves and emotions, everything is raw. Everything is exposed. You're fully naked under your gown. You're often drugged. You're very distracted by the pain and the whole delivery process. What I didn't know about, and which I'm trying to get everybody to find out about now, are doulas. That wasn't common to me way back when I had my children. My youngest is 17, about to be a senior in high school. But I wasn't familiar with that. My mother didn't talk to me about doulas. And although with my first birth, my husband and my mother were there with me, I was overdrugged.
Mm-hmm.
So I could barely function when the doctor and nurse were talking to me. But had I had a doula in the room, they probably would have caught, hey, wait a minute, didn't you just give her a shot of this? Why are you giving her that and that?
Mm-hmm.
Someone to be that extra advocate in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband had to pull my body forward to help me push because I could hear them asking me to push, but physically I could not make my body do the responses for everything that was needed because I was overdrugged. With my second birth, again, sometimes people get a little too common. And as with everyone, when you're tired and you're at the end of your shift, you're ready to go. I had somebody that was ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so was my baby. And they did not handle me well. It was very, very disappointing. It was a good thing that the next nurse that came on, she was fresh for her shift.
Mm-hmm.
So the rest of my experience was different. But that first aspect of it was very disappointing. Another thing, I wasn't familiar with things like, oh, massage your abdomen after you give birth, make sure you wear girdles and things to retain your. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People assumed I knew some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so while you're there, you're exposed, you're bleeding, and you're like, I'm still not stopping the bleeding. Oh, well, have you massaged your abdomen? You didn't talk to me about that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my oldest daughter was born, they were not really communicating to me what was happening. And it took forever for me to hear her breathe. Afterwards, I learned it was because the umbilical cord was wrapped around her neck, but they didn't want me to know what was happening. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Right.
I, I'm still the mom. I'm still engaged in this process. But there is a silence in the room
Mm.
when your baby comes out and they're not crying. And then there's a deafening silence that sounds like it's lasting for hours.
Mm-hmm.
But I was asking questions, no one was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
I understand they were working on my baby, trying to make sure she would survive, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
But no one was explaining to me what happened.
Yeah.
My husband explained to me after because he was trying to figure out what was going on. So thank you for opening up this discussion.
Yeah. That's powerful. We don't know what we don't know until it's too late. And that seemed like a common root and why a lot of us Black and brown women and birthing people are dying because we don't know. And we don't have these spaces where we can really pour into other mothers or just women in general, not even maybe a mother may say, hey, I want to have kids down the line in the future, but I'm scared. I had a miscarriage my first pregnancy and I thought I couldn't have kids. I was like, I did all the things. I worked out, I ate healthy, I did all the things. And I still lost my very first pregnancy. And it wasn't until afterwards where I actually said something and communicated with people where they're like, oh, I had 5 miscarriages. I had 10 miscarriages. It was just like, okay, this is a thing. But what is powerful that you said, Nancy, is that they try to exclude you out of the communication. They try to exclude you out of your own birthing experience. And you depended on that to know what was going on, which is what we all do. We depend on those who are medically trained to support us in this journey. But imagine if you could have had somebody beforehand to say that had more powerful things, more positive and supportive things to say to you before you had these experiences that kind of could let you know, such as a doula, let you know, hey, look out for these things. If this is happening, this may be the reason why it's happening. So say something, speak up. Because a lot of us don't have that strength to do that. So how do you allow your experience to really help advocate Black women now that you work with or encounter?
So one thing I want to add to my story is don't just get copies of your medical records. Also request copies of the notes because sometimes there are additional notes that are not necessarily medically concerning that are in your file. And you need to know what is being said about you behind your back that you actually have access to if you request it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the things. Another thing, always advocate on what you care about because that'll be the easiest for you. If you're doing something that you're not connected to, it's very hard and difficult for you to figure out information.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it, but
Mm-hmm.
if it's something that you really care about, and really statistically, women run for office,
Mm-hmm.
um, they support others in other things because it's based on what we care about.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically, men do it for ego, but women do it because they care.
Yeah.
So when you think about something, an injustice happening in the school, well, one of the biggest things I was one of those parents that always was there for the audit,
Mhm.
classroom audit, making sure I was always available. They knew one of the Wallace parents was going to be on campus at any given point of time because that was our right. Here's
Mhm.
my ID. Let me sign in. Let me come see my child. Because I had two on 504 accommodations. And so I could not afford to have them continue to slip. So if I was proactive,
Mhm.
I made sure they knew that that one's mama was going to come if stuff didn't happen right. So being present when they have council meetings, when they have school board meetings, show up,
Mhm.
especially in districts that school district my children are in right now, 12% African American.
Mhm.
They came from one that was 85% African American. And it was a huge adjustment, especially for my girls. It was easier for my boys than my girls. And there were some identity issues, and we had to address those things. We had to address stuff that I grew up already knowing. You're black, you're beautiful. It doesn't matter. We all come in a rainbow of colors.
Mhm.
But what they were experiencing, I had to pull myself back so that I could relate to them and help them be able to push forward. And when I tell you I'm so proud of my girls, they restarted the Black Student Union in their high school. It had gone dormant for a few years before they got there. And, I'm like, yes, keep it going, keep it going. They're getting people interested in the voting process, the elections coming up. Like, absolutely, get people interested.
Mhm.
You know, if it's something that you care about and your children are watching you, and these younger generations are looking for congruency. And we have to make sure our words and our actions are aligned.
Mhm.
And they want to see public Nancy and private Nancy have congruency.
Mhm.
That's how my kids are.
Mhm.
So I believe that if you advocate, it's so much easier to just to look at what you really care about.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff I care about, but
Mhm.
I have to narrow it down because Neshe, how long does it take for us to get on the schedule?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I say. She's a woman of all talents, honestly. And I think the point that you brought up that our kids are seeing us, we have to be mindful of that. I have two daughters, and the way that I carry myself, the things that I say, the words that I put into the universe, they repeat that. They do those things. So when we're looking at maternal health, we're also looking at like how am I parenting my kids because I want them to look like me and be better than me. I want them to see the problems and the issues and let's address it now to where in the future we can try to combat and eliminate these issues for when they get to that time where if they decide they want to have kids. So that's
And
that's the big part.
Nishay, something that you mentioned, um, I'm very sorry and heartbroken for you for your miscarriage. And I think many lawmakers have forgotten how common miscarriages are. Because in the state of Texas, you are at a point to where your body almost hits sepsis
Yeah.
before they will address the miscarriage, which can sometimes cause women to become infertile.
Mm-hmm.
So, in an effort to control women's bodies, they're over controlling the fertility associated with women.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too much overregulation.
Yeah.
So things like that, those kind of things that you care about. And
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think of it. And maybe someone else can think of it, but I just cannot think of any legislation that regulates a man's genitalia.
Mm-hmm. That part. That part. Yeah. Those are the things that we gotta think about. Yeah. Those are the things that we have to think about and how that plays a part on how things look for Black and brown women. Like that plays a part. That's a question.
Well, and statistically, when things hit women hard, they hit Black women severely
Yeah.
harder. There's a significant difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I'm trying to tell you. She be having all the wisdom. All the wisdom. I love it. I love it.